Hey everyone, welcome back to the Pageant Project. My next guest is Hannah Cross, who is Miss New Zealand, Miss Asia Pacific International 2025, hailing from the coastal town of, here we go, Mount Maunganui. Hannah Cross is a professional model, fashion and costume designer and mixed media artist. She holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the University of Auckland and is passionate about using creativity as a tool for connection, joy, and social impact. In 2025, Hannah founded Creativity for Community, an initiative that turns art into action, raising awareness and support for causes across New Zealand, from charity events to cancer advocacy. With a warm, uplifting spirit and a heart for service, Hannah aims to inspire through authenticity, empathy, and creativity. She proudly represents New Zealand on the international stage, seeking to bring home her country's first Miss Asia Pacific International crown in nearly 40 years. Well, Hannah, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I am absolutely fabulous. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. We've been talking for about half an hour before I
Yes.
finally managed to hit the record button, but here we are. So, Hannah, why don't you start, because I've got a fairly international audience, and just in case people are watching, I don't know, from the UK or America, and they go, "What's New Zealand? Isn't that part of Australia?" Why don't you tell people a little bit about New Zealand?
Of course. I am from Aotearoa, New Zealand. We are the land of the long white cloud, and we are a very beautiful. We've got so much nature, so much native flora and fauna that really sets us apart from. We've just got such a unique ecosystem here, and our land is so beautiful. And I think also we're quite renowned for our friendly and outgoing personality as a country. When we go traveling, people are normally very quick to pick up our accent and our friendly demeanor. And, we're a very supportive and happy country who just loves to put themselves out there and try lots of different things. And we also are really into our sport. We're proud to be the home of the All Blacks and proud to be have a very successful Olympic team. So I think pageantry is the next step for us. Like, let's bring New Zealand to the international stage and get New Zealand some crowns, because we've just got so much to offer here. And yeah, New Zealand is just the best place in the world, and I feel very blessed and very lucky to be here and have grown up here all of my life. So yeah.
Let's give you a little test. Can you describe rugby union to say to an American who doesn't know what rugby is, because you mentioned
Uh-huh.
the All Blacks, which is a rugby union team. Can you
Mhm.
describe the game of rugby union?
So, you know how the Chiefs versus the other team in the American football was like really big and it was like a humongous deal? Imagine that, but the All Blacks versus South Africa in the Rugby World Cup a couple of years ago. That was our Chiefs game. Like, it was huge. Obviously we lost, which was like very disappointing for us, but we're gracious losers. But yeah, the All Blacks have been a staple in my household for like all of my life. I remember the Rugby World Cup 2012. My neighbours would come over. We'd have the big black All Blacks flag swaying in the lounge, and it's brilliant. It's such a lovely way to bring together our community. And I think I might be going to a rugby game on Sunday actually. So it's very much integrated into our culture down here, and we love it. So I hope that gives some sort of explanation as to rugby.
I think there's a good chance that some people may have seen things on like TikTok with the is it
Yes,
the
the
haka
haka.
yeah. So do you want to explain
Yes.
to people what that is?
Yeah, so the haka is a sacred it's a sacred act, and it can be used in multiple ways. Sometimes it's done for intimidation, which is, back in the early days of Māori settlement, that was something that was used to intimidate other tribes and other iwi from coming onto their land.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of turned into a sort of a respectful um, kind of acceptance of the battle that is about to take place, whether that is through
Yeah.
rugby or through whatever. But it's also a really beautiful, prideful act from only New Zealand can do the haka. We have our beautiful Māori culture, which is so unique to New Zealand and is so rich in all of the things, all the stories, the waiata, the hakas that are performed. So it is our little way of bringing little old Kiwi land to the big world stage and being able to set ourselves apart in our normally black and silver fern uniform. So yeah.
Say, I mean, obviously I'm an Australian, but I did spend some time over in New Zealand for a holiday, only on the South Island, and I went around in a RV, a camper van, whatever you want to call it,
Brilliant. Classic Kiwi
motorhome.
holiday, that.
I still think to this day it's the most beautiful country I've ever seen. I don't know where are you from? Are you from the South Island or are you from the North Island?
I'm from the North Island, so Tauranga is 3 hours south of Auckland, and
Right.
it is a coastal town. So we are lucky enough to be on the beach. Mount Maunganui, as you mentioned before, is our landmark. It's a beautiful mountain that we lots of tourists come and walk up and walk around. There's rock pools. We've got a little blue penguin colony on there as well. So
Wow.
yeah, it's just a very beautiful. It's got a small town vibe, but we do have around 160,000 people in Tauranga, and it's always growing. So yeah, it's still a small town, but also getting quite big, and also providing a lot more opportunity now to young people. And yeah, it's a growing town that's really lovely to be in. So yeah.
Nice. I mean, I'm glad to hear it's growing because a lot of smaller towns, even in places like Tasmania, for example, a lot of
Yes.
the young people are leaving because they don't see any opportunity for themselves there.
Yeah, I mean that's still the same with Tauranga, I think. I moved away to Auckland to do my Bachelor of Fine Arts
Oh,
degree, and then this year, since graduating, I've come home, and it's just there's just something about it. The big city vibe of Auckland is wonderful, but you do get to a point when you have lived in a small town for so long that you do treasure. There's just something about coming back and just being around your loved ones, and
yeah.
yeah, spending days at the beach and just kind of being very chilled out and very mellow, especially because a lot of my modeling work and my pageantry work is up in Auckland. So I feel like when I come back to Tauranga, I'm like on sabbatical, I'm on a break.
Yeah, I think sort of once you've seen one big city, you've kind of seen them all. So whether it's
Yes.
Auckland, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, it's kind of all the same vibe. But I think I love going back to smaller, quieter areas. I think that's much more my vibe. Why don't you start by telling people? So you come from this small town. It doesn't
Yes.
exactly sound like it's pageant central. So
No.
how did you get involved in the crazy world of pageantry?
Well, so funny you say that actually, because the only winner of Miss Universe from New Zealand, Lorraine Downs, in 1983, she actually hailed from Mount Maunganui.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah, so our community here who do know about pageantry, most of the time they reference the fact that, oh, Lorraine Downs is from Mount Maunganui. So, that was always fun. But yeah, as I say, I was doing my bachelor's degree I was in my last year of my bachelor's degree last year, and I was kind of looking for an excuse to get back on the stage. I was a dancer for 16 years, and when I finished high school, obviously you got to pick your next move. So my next move was moving to Auckland and doing my art degree, and that did mean sacrificing a really huge part of my life that I really adored, which was being on stage. So I didn't really do too much. I did my art, and then I also got into modeling in my first year of uni. And then in my third year, I was kind of looking for something to get me back on that stage and feel more at home again. And that's when I found a regional pageant, which was Miss Auckland. So I competed in that, and I had a wonderful time. I made lots of amazing connections with the girls. I picked up a whole bunch of skills that were really helpful for interviewing and event coordination. I held a really amazing event, which was a paint at the pub, paint and sip event, and that raised over $1,000 for I Am Hope, which is a mental health charity in New Zealand. And I just felt so empowered from that, and it gave me a sense of purpose to be able to use my art and my talent for that in a really unique way, and also obviously culminated in the ability for me to go on stage for the first time in 3 years and be able to perform. And it was just such a wonderful feeling that, nothing compares to being on the stage for me. I have such a love for it. I was a big musical theatre girl, so I just loved being these crazy characters back in the day and rocking these amazing costumes. And I guess for pageantry, like, even though you're not rocking a costume that's kind of wild, although sometimes you are with national costumes,
Yeah.
but just being able to be on that stage and be so proud in who you are, it was such a wonderful feeling. And then this year, because of my experience last year being in Miss Auckland, I was invited to do Miss Universe New Zealand, and I guess I sat down with that and thought, how can I build upon what I've already grown, but also even more integrate my artistic talent and my kind of community building vibe. So that's how I founded Creativity for Community, which is a wonderful initiative where I partner with lots of Kiwi charities such as the Cancer Society of New Zealand and the Waipuna Hospice and the Breast Cancer Foundation. And and I've just been holding lots of events for that. And Miss Universe was such a wonderful experience. So yeah, that's kind of the journey so far. And I'm definitely looking forward to the next one, which is heading off to the Philippines later this year.
Wait, but if you just back up for a sec, what was the name of the event? You said paint at the pub or
Paint
paint?
to the pub. So
Okay,
it
you
was
have
a
to
paint and
explain
sip.
that. Like, what? That's I go to the pub. I don't paint at. So what
No.
happened?
Well, it was brilliant because, funny you say that, a lot of people actually joined the paint and sip because they came to have, chips and beer, and they were like, oh my gosh, there's a painting event happening at the same time. So yeah, we pretty much just had this lovely event at this little garden bar in Auckland, and set up all these little canvases, and I stood at the front and hosted a really fun event where I was encouraging everyone to get out their paintbrushes and go wild. We all painted a cat pushing over a vase, classic, comedic little canvas there. And yeah, it was just such a wonderful evening, and obviously inspired me to start a whole lot of artistically focused events. So this year with Miss Universe, I decided to host a charity art auction for the Pink Ribbon Foundation. So that was kind of like the next step, because I didn't feel like I could repeat myself with the
Yeah,
paint at the pub, but
yeah,
I did feel like it was a really effective way of bringing together my community. And so yeah, I just love it. And that night was so fun because I'd obviously never run a charity event before, so I was very stressed. But when it
yeah.
all came together, it just came together so beautifully. A really heartwarming experience because it just brought together my community in such a wonderful way. And my art friends were mingling with my pageant friends, and then I met a whole bunch of new people who were like, "What's this? What's going on?" Or they'd seen the ads on Instagram and gone, "This looked really cool." So yeah, and I had a few raffle prizes as well. So it was just a really lovely night, and yeah, I have very fond memories.
When you had the paint at the pub, and I don't know if you had like members of the public sort of see you, and they hear about pageants. Do you find is it similar to Australia where people don't really know anything about pageants at all, and then you have to
Yes.
explain why it is you got a crown and sash?
Yes, it is. The route that I typically go with explaining to people in New Zealand is I go, so do you know what Miss Universe is?
Yeah.
And then sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they'll say no. And I say, okay, have you seen those TikToks where, there's a really beautiful chick and she's got a sash on and she's doing this crazy walk on this catwalk or whatever? And then most of the time that's what they say yes to, because I mean, talk about amazing queens like Catriona Gray who have iconic walks and they're all over social media. So I just typically go from that point and say, well, that's what I do, but just on a national scale at this point, but hopefully soon international, which would be brilliant. But yeah, it's it's definitely a small industry in New Zealand. It's definitely one that is growing, which is exciting. But obviously, it's been around for a while and it's been through a very unique journey. So I guess now we've got to start a new frontier of a safe space for women to really enjoy pageantry, and that's
Yeah.
what I'm hoping to bring as kind of on the younger side of the pageant world down here in New Zealand. Yeah.
Yeah, I think pageantry in a lot of countries is undergoing sort of a revolution. There's some things that we don't like, some certain behaviours that we don't like, and I think very much belong in the past. And I think the sooner that we can leave those behaviours behind, the better. But I'm still fascinated by the whole pub. Did I see a? And by the way, any American hearing this will be jealous because they don't get to do things like that, having their charity events at a pub. I think they would love doing that. But did I see an Instagram photo of you playing pool as well, or am I hallucinating?
Yes, you did. So I had another charity event that was fundraising for the Cancer Society, and it was fundraising for my skydive for cancer, which you might have also seen,
Yes.
where I jumped out of a plane. It was brilliant, 15,000 feet. We had the oxygen mask and everything. It was so freaky. Not the scariest thing I've ever done, though. I think that would be the Miss Universe stage. um, but yeah, no, that was a really awesome event. It was for the ladies of Tauranga. So pool is quite a male dominated sport, and I thought to myself, how can we change this to be more inclusive and bring together a group of ladies for a really fun night? We got an incredible pool player, Wendy. She's absolutely lovely. She's a nationally recognized champion in women's pool, so bringing her along and encouraging women to upskill and doing a whole bunch of little challenges to, yeah, really learn something new, and as a unit of really amazing women. So I had members of my family there, but I also had, members of the public and, friends of friends, and it was just such a lovely evening. And yeah, it's a treasured one for sure, because that was actually my first charity event that I held in Tauranga. So it was just lovely. And the gastro, like, garden pub, whatever you want to call it, that we hosted that event at is Astrolab Brew Bar, and they have been a staple in Mount Maunganui for years and years and years, like longer than I've been here. So they're pretty iconic, and they were absolutely jumping at the idea to host something that was so inclusive for the women of Tauranga. So yeah, I'd love to do all sorts of things. I'm a yes girl. I'll say yes to anything. So yeah, that was part of it.
I have two follow up questions to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Number one, are you any good at pool? And number two, is it just my imagination, or do you hold all your charity events at the pub?
Um, that sounds terrible.
Hey, look,
I'm
it's the
I'm
most Australian or New Zealand thing I've heard. Like, where'd you do all your events? I did them at the pub.
yeah. Well, no. See, the charity event that I held, the Paint It Pink charity art auction, that was held at a community event venue, which was really lovely, and they were very supportive there. But yeah, I suppose the other two that I did hold and were at a garden bar. But honestly, yeah, that was the best place for it, because it brought people together in a more casual sense, so they didn't feel like they had to show up as someone that wasn't authentic to themselves. They could just
Yeah,
be the laid back, chilled Kiwi that they are. And that's so important, especially because pageantry is so small in New Zealand that people kind of look upon girls who do pageantry and go, um, so what does that, like, what are you kind of like then? Are you a chilled back Kiwi girl, or is there something more to you? So
yeah,
I guess being from New Zealand and making that a real priority, yeah, I wanted to make a really easy space for people to come in and be included and feel like they were at home in that space. So yeah,
yeah.
you could say 2 out of 3.
I think it's a great thing because I think if you want to bond with your community, you need it to be accessible and
Yes,
relatable. I think that's a big thing.
absolutely.
And if, especially in Australia or New Zealand, if you're not relatable, you're not going to be able to bond with the community at all. And, there's a
No.
big difference between just because you hold it at a pub doesn't mean you have to be drinking all the time.
No,
So
and my events were marketed as non-alcoholic, so that was
there you
also a
go.
really, yeah. So it wasn't meant to promote that side. It was more to promote the actual venue itself was just so perfect because it was one that was
Yeah.
bringing the community together. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think especially in smaller towns, a pub is a big
yes,
hub of the community, and it's you don't just go there to
absolutely.
drink. You go there for dinner. You go there for meals. You go to catch up with your mates, and
Yeah,
it's a central
birthdays,
part.
post,
Yeah, it's a central
receptions,
part of the.
bridal parties, all sorts of things
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
think it's a
huge. And
little.
that particular garden bar, Astrolabe, as I say, such a iconic piece of Tauranga history. Yeah, very much attached to that one.
Yeah. And are you any good at pool?
No. Sometimes I'll have a really good run and then I'll get like really confident. I'll be like, yeah, I can do this. And then, the
And then you
next
can't.
game, I'll just miss every shot and I'll be like, yep, okay, next. Yeah. I will say I'm quite good at bowling and I'm very good at, really niche things, but like pool,
Yes.
not so much. Yeah.
What niche things? You can't tease us with that. What niche things are you really good at?
I'm quite a menace at card games because I used to play them with my grandparents all the time. So that's
Okay.
always fun.
Are we talking like Snap, Bingo, Poker, Cards Against
like
Humanity? What sort of card game?
like Five Crowns and Rummy Cub and those kinds of ones. Well, I mean, Rummy Cub is more of a tiles game, but you know what I mean. Those kinds of ones.
Right.
What other things? I don't really know. Now you've put me on the spot. But I mean, I'm great at a few things. So you never know.
Well, on that note, why don't you tell us about the painting behind you? Let's get you to talk about something that you're definitely good at.
Oh, gee. So this was a painting that I did last year in my final year of my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. It's called Dream Space, and pretty much it was based on a dream that I'd had in my university journey. Obviously with university it's quite well known that us uni students get quite sleep deprived. So after I think it was 3 days of like maybe 2 hours sleep straight, I had woken up from one of these terrible sleeps and realized that I remembered the dream that I'd had. And my paintings are always very bright and colorful. It's my style.
Yeah.
People always recognize my paintings for the fact that they have just so much color. It looks insane. And so yeah, when I woke up and I remembered this dream, I do have quite a lucid memory. I can remember a lot of things, and waking up from that dream, I was like, I need to paint this because this is such a unique experience. This is something that only I have experienced as an artist. So being able to take that out of my brain and put it on a canvas is something that it's a very wonderful thing to be able to do, because obviously my brain thinks of so many different things. My brain is very, very busy. And so when it does have these moments of just pure bliss and joy, and when it's creating such wonderful and wacky things in my head and I get to be able to pop that on a canvas, that's really special to me. And and I guess that paper was focused around the meditation aspect of creativity, and so for me painting is my meditation and my form of relaxation. So that was another element that seemed really apt, was the fact that I was sleeping, I was dreaming, but while also creating the piece, I was feeling really peaceful and calm at the same time. So yeah, that's kind of that. There's a little
Can you
golden
just
retriever there.
can you describe what was happening in the dream? Because obviously the painting is a still, but what was happening in the dream? Because it looks kind of surreal.
Yes, I would very much describe my paintings as very surreal. I don't know what I was doing. I think I was just watching this landscape. These are supposed to be little Chupa Chup
I was
lollipops.
going to
We've got
say,
some
they look like
sunflowers over
Chupa
there.
Chups.
Yeah,
What?
like it was real like a Candyland type thing. This is a giant disco ball.
Of
And then you've
course.
got like the candy colored sky. It was just like, I don't know, my brain goes to some really crazy places when I'm creative, but I think that makes my brain so much fun. It just makes creating such a lovely experience for me, and it's why I've been an artist my entire life, because I've just been able to really get in touch with who I am deep down, and it's this creative, crazy blonde chick from New Zealand.
Blonde chick. That's not something that the Americans would say. Blonde chick. It's a very
No.
Australia or Kiwi thing to say.
Yeah.
Let's dive into this creativity a bit more. I've interviewed multiple pageant contestants who are teachers. A lot of them are art teachers, and I often have this discussion with them. I'm someone who didn't really value art in school, and it's because when I told you before we started recording, I had a pretty nasty experience with an art teacher, and I feel that when you're like in primary school, we're talking, so I think it was probably age 8 or 9, somewhere around there. when you have like one bad experience with a teacher, it can really change the whole trajectory of your life. I had a not so good interaction with an art teacher. I had a sports teacher who told me I threw like a girl. I still remember that to this day.
Well, hey, that's not a bad thing.
Well, he didn't mean it as a compliment. I think it's important that I say that. But when it comes to art, you already said you come from a small town and you are very artistic, and then you got your dance. Both of those ones, very often when you go into university, like college, to study them, your parents or whoever it is can get worried that, okay, how are you going to turn this into a business, or what job are you going to get? And I've spoken to multiple creatives who say that art is so important for children growing up. You know, creativity, it's not just math and science. You've got to have that side of it, dance as well. And I completely agree. But there's also difficulty going, okay, I really love doing this, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it, or how am I going to make money out of it, basically. Was that ever a concern for you, coming from like already a small town?
Yeah, absolutely it was. I was actually one of very few people to leave high school at the graduation ceremony. You know, they say Hannah Cross is going to do a Bachelor of Fine Arts at the University of Auckland.
Yeah.
I think at that graduation ceremony, I was the only one at that stage going to do a fine arts degree. And I think a few people from Tauranga have since changed their minds and have gone to do fine arts, which is incredible. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely a concern. And interestingly enough, my careers teacher, you know, our careers counselor kind of
Advisor.
person back in high
Yeah.
school, she was actually telling me to stay far away from art and actually go towards a marketing degree, because I was also really passionate about business studies at the time, and also English as well. I loved English very, very much. So yeah, it was definitely something that like I was very much made to turn away from. And I had a few discussions with my teachers at high school about the fact that I wanted to go and study art, but I wouldn't say they were I wouldn't say they weren't supportive of that, but I would say that they were saying, "Well, what do you expect to come from this? Like, where are
Yeah.
you planning to go with it?" Because obviously they had ended up as high school art teachers, which is great and isn't something that I've ruled out for myself. I love teaching children. I teach my mum's primary school class of 6-year-olds sometimes how to draw a self portrait or play ukulele. But yeah, it's definitely been a concern of mine, and especially coming from a small town. There's a lot of artists here, but there's a lot of artists who I don't know. They've lived another life before they've come to being an artist,
Yeah.
and obviously, for me, pageantry has kind of opened the door to be able to combine my love of art while also giving it a really solid purpose. And I've also managed to reboot one of my old businesses that I had back in the day, which was drawing pet portraits. And
Nice.
selling my paintings has been a lot easier as well, because I've had this lovely platform to help me out. But yeah, it's definitely something that has weighed on my mind, and you know, I've had friends talk to me about it, but also going through the bachelor's degree system, everyone was there for the same reasons. We all wanted to do art, but we all wanted to somehow come out the other side and be able to find a purpose for that and a job for that. And I have some wonderful friends who I'm very, very close with, who have made their own success
Mm.
completely. They've started their own businesses, they've started their own creative processes, and are making amazing money from that. So I think I'm just still in my groove trying to find where exactly I fit in that sphere. But for sure, pageantry has been an incredible way of being able to use my artistry to be able to promote myself in that way. So yeah, it's definitely interesting for sure.
Well, let me ask you about creativity and the importance of it. Because again, this comes back to many conversations that I've had. And parents, I think, well, not parents, but a lot of people understand, okay, you need to know math, you need to know science, you
Yeah.
need to know history or whatever it is. And I get that, because you need to be able to speak and read and all that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you what the importance of creativity is and art. And I preface this by saying I never had any artistic talent in the same way that you have that very specific talent behind you. But what I found was that creativity is not just restricted to art or music, even something like business or marketing. In fact, marketing is extraordinarily creative, and there's different ways of expressing creativity. But I think for parents who maybe their kid wants to be a dancer or they love painting and the parents wondering, but hang on, don't do that because you'll never make money from it. From your perspective and your life experience, what's the importance of creativity in a young person's life?
Well, I was very lucky to have very wonderful parents who were very supportive of me and actually encouraged me to go to Elam and study fine arts full time. And I think that it's a shame that a lot of parents do get quite nervous about that, but I can completely understand their reservations because art is a very unpredictable industry, and so is anything that is quite unpredictable. You can assess that to pretty much any career that requires any sort of risk involved is going to cause some sort of stir. But the importance of creativity is that it allows your brain to work in a incredible way that is so unique to every other facet. You've got right or wrong in so many different industries. Like with maths, there's only a certain number that's going to be correct, or science, this is going to create this, and that's the explanation for that. But with creativity, there's a whole realm where there's no wrong answers. And that just takes an entire level of pressure off of you as a human being and allows you to really tap into a side of you that can be quite silenced because of the fact that you're going through this really trying time with trying to figure out, am I doing the right thing? But even with art or music or dance or whatever it is that you decide to do, it's really important that you do give your brain that break, that ability to be able to tap into something that is so unique, because it's just enriches your personal experiences, and it lends itself to so many things, and I mean, I studied fine arts, but I worked as a graphic designer, which was a lot more technical and a lot more, on the computer for a little bit. And that was really amazing. But also having that creative side of me where I was like, oh, I could actually spice up this design a little bit and add a bit of flair. It's such an asset. And I do believe that from a young age, it should be encouraged. And I think with art teachers and things like that, it is such a struggle when you do have teachers who do tell you this is not good enough or whatever, because I went through that as well, very much. And I actually left one of my favorite classes at high school because of a teacher. So, and I'd also been made to cry in my fine arts degree over an
Oh, good.
abstract painting that I did. So it's definitely a resilience building place. And it's so important because, we don't want to think too harshly on ourselves. We just want to be loose and free in how we want to think. And yeah, and I think, as I was saying before, it's a really meditative process for me. And people will find different ways of meditating creatively, whether that's through playing the piano or, just sitting down and writing some creative writing, whatever that looks like for them. But that's so important because it just means that your brain is doing something that's so separate to the articulate, very left brain side, you could say, where it's all very orderly and very sensible, and that's in that way. Yeah, that's kind of what I'd say to that.
But I mean, you mentioned that you were made to cry in a class, in an art class. I wasn't
Yes.
made to cry, but I'll tell you specifically what happened to me was we were doing pottery, ceramics, and we were supposed to be making something for Father's Day, and I'm not saying I'm good at art, but I was trying my hardest because that's just what you do. And there I was, I think I was probably 8 or 9 years old, trying my hardest to turn this clay into something that was vaguely recognizable. And the art teacher, he was a Scot, this old Scottish man. And
Wow.
he basically said that, he basically insinuated that I was just trying to waste time. And I wasn't. But when you're really trying to do something as a kid and someone says, oh, you're just wasting time, it leaves an impact. Like I didn't cry or anything. I couldn't care less now. But you
Yeah.
remember it. You remember
do.
it. This is my point as a kid. And it's like, okay, well, I'm never doing art again because, see, the thing with math is that you said you can get it right or wrong. So to me, it was more certain. Like if I got it wrong, I could see why. But in art, what always niggled against me was like, okay, you're telling me art, you never get it right or wrong, you just told me what I was doing was wrong, or you're giving me a mark, and you just told me. So, can you go into that? Because as you mentioned, you sound like you had a pretty bad experience. How do you sort of balance all this out? That's what always got me about art.
Yes. Well, it is so subjective, you know. That's the cliche line, isn't it? Everyone says
Yeah,
art is so subjective. There's no right or wrong. But the thing is that I genuinely believe there is no right or wrong. And I think that art is appreciated by so many people in so many different ways
mm,
that there is no such thing as having an artwork that is ugly or an artwork that is made technically wrong, because I
yeah,
think in that sense it adds a bit of individuality to that artwork. And I
yeah,
think that if you're genuinely trying to create something, then how is that wrong? You know, like it's not. It's you expressing yourself in that unique way. And the experience that I had was really horrid. You know, the teacher pretty much ripped me to shreds in front of the entire class and said that like my painting was absolutely dreadful and that I needed to stop trying to explain myself because I was over explaining. I was talking too much. Surprise, surprise. But I was over explaining my painting to the point where I felt like I had to justify why I had done certain things. When actually, as an artist, you don't have to justify why you did certain things. You can just say, I just felt like putting some pink there. You
yeah,
know, that's what this is. This is, I
yeah.
just felt like painting some chupa chups in a forest, in a meadow. So, yeah, but absolutely, it's just, yeah, it can affect you from any age. And, you know, that moment has stuck with me for a very long time. But it's reminded me of the fact that there are always going to be voices that are going to tell you no. And there's always going to be voices that are going to tell you, you're wrong, you're doing this wrong, this isn't worth your time. But the really important thing to remember is that you have to stick to your guns. And if you're feeling really good about what you're creating, then you're most likely doing it right. And
Yeah.
right might not look like right to your lecturer or or the person that you're making the thing for, but what it will look like to you is something that you've dedicated your mind and body and spirit to, and it creates just such a wonderful space for you. So yeah, that's kind of where I'd be with that. Like obviously bad experiences with art, I hear them all the time. Like I hear people saying, "My art teacher made me cry. My art teacher did this." And I just get horrified by all of these stories. It's actually motivated me to continue with Creativity for Community and potentially see about, turning it into a teaching opportunity where I can, use that as
Yeah.
a way to set up workshops and things, because being an educator is so important to me, coming from, my mum being a primary school teacher and my auntie also works in primary school teaching. So it's just like this institution. But also I've seen how kids respond to positive and negative feedback in that way. So it's just so important that we foster a really positive environment when it comes to creativity, because it's something that they can carry with them for a lifetime. And they're probably going to forget about Pythagoras, and they're probably going to
Oh yeah.
forget about what calcium is on the periodic table, but the thing that people won't forget is the way that they can express themselves creatively. So that's a really important thing to need to foster. Yeah.
It was a really excellent TED talk back in the day. It was one of the original TED talks, probably seen tens of millions of times. Unfortunately, the guy has since passed away. He was talking
Oh,
about the
wow.
importance of creativity in education. And I'm paraphrasing here, he had this thing about children. He said his argument was that we are educating children out of their creativity
Yes.
precisely because we are saying there's right and wrong. And he said in this day and age, if you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never create anything original. That's not to say everything that's created is of value, because sometimes you do get it wrong. But he
Yeah.
said if you're not prepared to be wrong, then you'll never create anything original. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that, because I heard that
Yeah.
and it just resonated with me. Even as someone who was more left-brained in school, I've since become much more whole-brained. And I think in this day and age, it's so important to be creative because it's almost the only skill that you yourself can own, because
Yes.
everything else can be replicated by, computers or AI. So what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that sort of idea that if you're not prepared to be wrong, you can never create anything original?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a certain resilience that is built, right? When you're being told
Mm.
this is going to be wrong, this is going to be right. I wholeheartedly agree with that TED talk, and I think that there is so much to be said about the fact that, you know, people are so obsessed with being correct all the time. And yeah, I think creativity needs to be shown as a way to just be relaxed and to be, you know, expressive in a new type of way, you know. Yeah, wow, that's really incredible. I just, yeah, I'm very passionate about reforming the way that people see art, because I think that people can be overly critical. You know, we used to have sessions at university where we'd spend 3 hours straight just critiquing everyone's artwork in the room. So it was a really intense kind of situation where actually a lot of the time you weren't getting that helpful information. You were just getting like, oh, your painting could use a little more texture, and it was completely irrelevant. So yeah, that's kind of
What
where I would be with that. But
what's
that's
the
such an interesting concept for sure.
I'll have to send you the talk afterwards because he had another example. And as a dancer, you probably appreciate it. There was a
Yes.
dancer who went on to become very famous, and I think helped choreograph Cats and things like that. So
Oh
very
wow.
famous. I can't remember her name for the life of me. But in school, she basically would have been diagnosed in this day and age as having ADD or ADHD because whenever she was in school, she could never sit down and then or sit still. And then at one point, she's having problems learning, and they bring her mum in, and you know the teacher says to the mum, "We're just going to leave her alone in the room for a while, so you come out with me." But as he went out, he turned the radio on. Then they went outside, and he said, "Just watch what happens." And the little girl, as soon as the two of them left the room and turned the music on, she was up on her feet, dancing and gliding all around the room. And it was really interesting because that teacher realized that girl learned differently, and that in order to learn, she needed to move. Whereas someone else would have said, she's got ADHD, you need to sit down, calm down, and basically shut up. So I think it's
Yeah.
very important that teachers can recognize creativity. But I was going to, like, what's the point of the art critiquing? Like, I get very confused sometimes when, I'll give you an example, because I don't know anything about art, but wine tasting. Okay, now very often people go to these wine tastings and they describe wine in a way that, oh, you know, it tastes of clay and it was facing the east and it was done in 2013 at this. And I'm like, it's wine.
It's wine.
And I say that I understand there are people who know a lot more about it than I do, but there was this case where there was a bunch of wine tasters and they were supposedly tasting this amazing wine. And this one wine critic got there late. He didn't know it was supposed to be fancy wine. He takes one drink of it and goes, "This wine is corked. It's gone off." And it had. But because all the other wine critics had been told it was a great wine, they weren't saying anything bad about it. And
Yeah.
when it comes to art, I get really confused and frustrated when I go to an art gallery and people tell me what I should think. Or, you know, the artist did this because. And it's like what you said about having to explain your art. I often go, well, hang on, how do you know that the artist meant that? How do you know that the artist didn't just do that for fun or impulsively? Because that's what I would do. Not everything has a hidden meaning. So when it comes to critiquing art, and then, you know, you go to art gallery and they have the little explanations next to it, as someone who's trying to, I would love to appreciate art more. But what
Yes.
am I missing? Because I get very confused by art critiques and art critics at times.
To be fair, like at university, when we would have those critique sessions, sometimes it would feel like you were pulling things out of thin air. And
Yeah.
that just didn't feel authentic to me.
No.
And I've always been an artist where I am making art that is consumable for the public eye. That's how I describe my art. It's very much, it's not trying to be more than what it looks like. It's not trying to explain itself in any further way. It's just, hey, look at this. This is just something I thought about. My national costume for Miss Universe New Zealand this year, the Kia, that was something that I had made in my degree last year, and it was such an incredible experience to make because, you know, I just wanted to make this beautiful bird to show my appreciation for the forest and the fauna that we have in New Zealand, but also, you know, do something really different because I had traditionally been a painter throughout my university career, and I thought, let's do something really unique. Let's do some engineering. Let's do some sewing, you know. And that's how that came together. And it frustrated me that my lecturers would tell me, oh, you've got too much going on, you need to edit, you need to take off certain things. Oh, why don't you just display the metal skeleton? Why cover it? Why make it a Kia? Why the Kia? Why not another bird? Why not this? And I just kind of got really frustrated by the fact that I felt like so many people were trying to control the narrative that I was writing for
Yeah.
this artwork. And I just went with what I wanted to do. And I was told throughout the creative process last year that, this Kia bird was incredible and it was going to be amazing. And then when I got the grade back, it didn't reflect those feelings that I'd had from my lecturers, and I was quite shocked. I was like,
Yeah.
why were you telling me how incredible this was and then turn around and say, oh, here's a kind of lousy grade for you. But then since then I've been able to use that costume because I made it the way
Yeah.
that I wanted to make it for the national competition, and I got so many compliments on how magnificent it was, and that to
Yeah.
me was the validation that I needed. And that delayed gratification in art is really important. I do think that a lot of people try to make up things to make the art have reason for existing when really it doesn't need to be there. And I can't lie, I've walked into a few art galleries before and gone, what is that? Why is that here? And I'm an artist, and I
Yeah.
go, okay, I can see what they're trying to do here, but that's a bit of a stretch. And that's totally fine. I think what's really important is that a lot of people have these opinions, and you're made to feel like you can't have those opinions, and you're
Yeah.
made to feel like, hey, actually, you cannot say that that is not art because this is why it is art. You can just say, I don't see that as art, and that's fine. It doesn't make you ignorant to the fact that, there's been a creative process involved, but it does mean that, you just don't appreciate that artwork as much as the person who might see it next will. And that's totally fine. But that is why I have tended to lean more towards the more consumable
Yeah.
way of art because, there's a term called the ready-made, which is the type of artwork that's like something that's been taken and just plonked in the middle of the floor, and apparently there's a story connected to it and you're supposed to know the story to appreciate the art because it's ready made, it's already been done, the artist has just taken it and plonked it in an art gallery and said, there you go, this is what it is. And a lot of people don't appreciate that kind of art because it is seen as lazy. So yeah, I think everyone has their specific taste. Some people are really interested in those pieces that have been plonked in the center of the room, and you go, wow, that's a fascinating story. And then some people look at it and go, it's just a urinal. And that's it. Or it's just I say the urinal because that's a very famous piece by a Dutch artist. And so yeah, I think it is definitely a very unique space that we're in at the moment, especially with the introduction of AI art, because it's starting to take over a little bit, and us artists are finding it hard to find our groove and find where we fit now that there's a robot who's apparently trying to take a lot of our jobs. So, yeah, I think that yeah, you're totally entitled to your opinion when it comes to walking into an art gallery and seeing what it is. You can appreciate the art that you want to appreciate, and you're absolutely allowed to have those opinions on that. And whether or not you think this artwork is absolutely crazy bonkers, not your cup of tea, that's fine because that's the joy of art. It brings people together because of the connections and the communication that happens between those people. So that's a very long-winded explanation of saying do what you want. Think what you want.
I think it's necessary, though, at least for people like me who don't profess to know anything about art or be an art expert in any way, shape, or form. Just sometimes we're made to feel like our opinion doesn't count because, oh, you don't know about, when the Renaissance was or what Da Vinci was thinking when he did that. I'm like, that's true, but I still have my opinion. Because it's art, it's not like science. My opinion should be as valid as anyone else's because precisely there is no right or wrong. So it just always confused me growing up as like, hang on, you tell me there's no right or wrong, but it still has to be your version of right or wrong. Yes. Otherwise it is wrong. And, as a curious young kid, it just never sat quite right with me. But I think,
Absolutely.
I've always appreciated the sort of art that you've got behind you because I can recognize like what it is. Yes, it's an exaggerated version of it, perhaps, but I can recognize things. It's when I look at something and go, I have no idea what this is. And then someone tells me it's supposed to represent the tempestuousness of this age and era. And when he was going through this and he was depressed because of that blue square there, I'm like, okay, I'm glad you get that. I'm not getting that at all. But you know what I mean? It's just sometimes it's very unfriendly. Art is very unfriendly to people who aren't artistic. And then that dissuades people from wanting to express their artistry.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I also tend to find that, I've had to make a lot of my own opportunities for myself in promoting my type of art, because a lot of the opportunities are given to people who the art community really love, but not
Yeah.
necessarily the general public. Like,
Yeah.
people want to come into the art gallery and see an artwork that they can recognize, as you said, but a lot of
Mm.
the time they do, and they go, why is this here? What is this?
Mm.
And I think sometimes it provides like a really kind of this unfair expectation on the viewer to have to come in and research why they're looking at this object, when actually you're totally allowed to just come in and go, I have no idea what that is, and
Yeah.
I don't really care about it, and
Yeah.
that's fine. But I do think sometimes artists can get a bit cocky about, saying, actually, I'm going to make this really niche piece of artwork, and it's going to be a mission for the people who want to view it to understand why that's happening. And sometimes the stories are really, really beautiful, and sometimes
Yeah.
I see a piece and I go, wow, like that's insane. There's a few famous pieces that come to mind, specifically this one where there's a bunch of candies in the corner of an art gallery, and it's encouraged that people would come up and take a candy from this rainbow pile of candy. But it was seen as every time someone was taking a piece of candy, like the public was taking a piece of candy, it was taking a piece of the person who passed
Yeah.
away from AIDS.
Oh, wow.
And that
Okay.
was this really incredible, and the artist, it was his partner who had AIDS and passed away, and that was kind of an awareness piece for him. So I
Mm.
think, art can be used in such extraordinary ways in that sense, when the audience is expected to have somewhat of an idea of what they're doing, then that's a really interesting concept. But again, not for everybody. So, that's
Yeah.
when artwork like this has a place, because that's for the people who maybe don't want to do the manual labor of thinking, oh, I've got to read this and I've got to dive on deep into this. When actually, you can just look at this and go, this is crazy. This is insane. I want to go here, and I want to take one of those chopper chops, and I want to play with that dog in the meadow, and that's okay.
There was I don't know if you saw it, there was one piece of artwork that really stuck with me, and it was this mechanical robot arm that was bleeding
Yes,
oil. You saw that
and
one? And it kept trying
swipe
to
the
swipe it up, but it was always futile because it was eventually going to basically die because it would run out
yeah.
of oil. And that one really struck home. And it's not like it's got a particular art technique that makes you think. It kind of makes you think of a much deeper thing. And see, that to me is the point of art. It's to make you think and to make you
Yes.
feel. And again, that's why it can't be right or wrong. Like someone might look at that and go, there's no artistry there, there's no painting, there's no. Well, it's like, yeah, but that's not the point. The point was that it
No.
stuck with me to this day and it made me
Yes.
think. So you remember that one as well, because that one really struck home.
Absolutely. That was one of the main ones that we studied in my first year of Elam. It was definitely one that was said, hey, so you know your expectations of art, you know how you're fresh out of high school, you've done the big, we call them NCEA boards, which were these three-paneled boards of paintings, and that, or
Right,
creative stuff that would be plonked on there and then sent away to Wellington to be scored.
right.
But yeah, that piece was extraordinary. That opened my eyes for the first time to what sculpture can really develop into, because you naturally, a lot of people just immediately go to ceramics, or those
Yeah,
big objects in public spaces, and people go, I don't know what that's trying to represent, but
yeah,
I'm here for it. But that piece, it made me feel sorry for a robot,
yeah,
which is a really incredible
yeah.
feeling, because how can you replicate that in some other way? And people have tried to replicate that artwork in unique ways. But the thing is that nothing compares to that original feeling of watching that struggling robot try and
Yeah.
pull itself together while
It
you
was
watch it continue to spill out of itself.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was a documentary made on it that we watched in class, and the
Oh
audience
wow.
of people that were there, they were crying behind those windows. Like,
Mm.
people were very emotional watching this robot, which is just crazy when you say it out loud. But, you know, when you're actually there, I can imagine it being a very emotional experience, because you're watching something die, even though it's an
Yeah.
inanimate object. You're watching it pull itself
Yeah.
together and struggle and die. It's really interesting. So I do believe that art has so many different facets, and there's a piece of art that tickles everyone's fancy, and there's no right or wrong, because when someone says that art is wrong to you, someone else might appreciate that more than you know. And so, yeah, I think every art has its place. Every art deserves to have a place. And yeah, that's something that I've come to find by studying it for 3 years, is that, you know, there's no wrong answer anymore. And while
Yeah.
lecturers might score me differently, or while, you know, critics might say, well, we're not really keen on your art, it's too colourful or whatever, then that doesn't matter, because
Yeah.
that's just not their cup of tea, and that's okay. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one who was struck by that sculpture or whatever you want to call it, because I saw that and it was very moving. I think us humans are quite odd. I don't think any other species looking at that would have any emotional
No.
reaction to it, but here we are crying over something we made up that's kind of
Yeah.
dying, but not really, because you could bring it right back to life if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It really speaks, I think, to some deeper part of us. But let me ask you, because you mentioned AI, and you know, I interviewed your friend Shay, and we spoke
Yes.
there a lot about AI and AI art, AI music, AI everything. And the thing is, when it comes to what AI can do, yes, I find it incredible in some ways. But what I found, as someone who's used it an awful lot, probably too much, is that there are certain things it still can't do. And I think the creativity part of it is the exact thing that it cannot replicate. So, for example, I tell it about the sculpture, the robot arm that's dying, trying to bring itself back together. And I say, I love this idea. Give me another one that's like it. And it always misses the mark. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's 99% of the way there, but that last 1% is what makes us human. And it just never seems to be out. Maybe one day it can. But even if it's like a poem, a piece of art, a piece of music, and I say, I really like this one, make another one like it, it never works.
No.
And I'm just curious, like your thoughts on AI art, AI music. I think it's going to take a lot of jobs, because it will it's going to make things faster and easier for a lot of people. And so you can't stand in the way of progress.
No.
But creativity, I don't think it's there.
No. And I don't think it ever will be.
No.
Because the thing is with creativity is that it's something that only the human brain can create.
Yeah.
It's all those connections, it's those personal experiences, it's your experience as a human being, putting that into creative outlet. That's what it is. AI is a robot who's trying to be human, but it lacks the human experiences because it hasn't
Yeah.
experienced it themselves. It's almost like it's just taken people's opinions and taken people's experiences from what it can find online and gone, okay, so this is what it is.
Yeah.
When actually that's not the case for everybody. And so the creative thing, I think, it will never be able to replicate creativity because it's got no personal experience of it. And while I think as an artist, and I think as just a creative in general, something that we can take away from AI art is the fact that we should be using it as a tool more than
Yeah.
anything else. As with most jobs and most things when it comes to AI, it should be seen as a tool, but it can also be quite harmful to your creative process because it can enable you to be quite lazy,
Yeah.
and it can say, oh, you know what, just come up with a really bright colorful painting that I can just like put on a canvas real quick. And to be fair, that's going to work for a little bit of the time, but you're going to get bored so quickly because it's not personal to you. And what's so incredible about the creative process is that people select songs they want to learn how to play on the piano or the violin, as you have, because of a personal event or a personal story attached to them, or maybe they heard a piece in a movie and thought, I want to learn how to play that, which is how I learned how to play La La Land on the piano, because I just was so obsessed with that one song for years. And then, yeah, I guess it's something that cannot be replicated, even though it will try and try. And I think it's really important for people like Shay is such a wonderful person to have in our pageant world, because she is paving the way for a new way of girls to think about science, and for all of us to think about science, really, and AI in that sense. So I think the more education that's out there for people, the better. And while I'm not quite the girl for the job in that sense, I am the girl who's advocating for creativity to be a strong human force and the in our future, because it's so important. And
Yeah.
robots can do a lot of things, but they can't be human. So
Oh.
it's a real personal yeah.
I think where it gets very deep is using AI in itself can be a very creative endeavor as well. And I know this very well from coding like AI apps, and I'm sure Shay does this as well. There's creativity with everything. And I think this brings us very neatly full circle, because you go, AI, it's cold, it's a robot. And yes, it is. And it's like a conglomeration of averaged out human experiences. Yet there are people who can do amazing things with it, and there are people who can't do anything with it. It's like a blank canvas. It's like a piano. It's like anything
Yeah.
else. Some people can make, to Picasso, how much is a canvas worth? Whereas to me, how much is it worth? And, so you could say the same about a basketball. Like to some people, a basketball is a multi-billion-dollar career. And to some people, it's just something they got thrown at them in a PE class. And so it's really fascinating when you talk about creativity, and it's a deeper conversation than we can have obviously in an hour, whatever we have. It's like no matter how far you go, there's always creativity in whatever you do. And I think that even with AI, and I think that that's very cool. But I think also for artists who are maybe panicked about AI taking their jobs, I think if, and I say this not just about artists, but anyone who's afraid of AI taking their jobs, I think if you're good at what you do and you care and you learn how to use AI as a tool, as you said, then AI is going to really help you become a lot more productive than you ever thought you could be. It'd be like you with a superpower. But there are going to be people who will try and, cheat the system and yada, 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 yada. But I think it's going to be an interesting time for creative types in general, because some people are going to be put out of it. But I think some people are going to be super mega star famous overnight.
Yeah. And I think also how I've been using it personally as a tool is being able to ask it for advice on how to market myself as an
Mm.
artist. It gives lots of great resources. And just by asking it one question, you've got about 5 websites that you can head up and
Oh, yeah.
have a look at. You've got, artist reviews, you've got all sorts just at the tap of a button. And that's really interesting, and is such a helpful thing. But yeah, it's definitely a balance that is we're still trying to work out, obviously, since it
Yeah.
is still so new. It's so new. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely think that there will be a place for it, and it will find its groove eventually, as will we, when we eventually come to how we use it as a tool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a weird time at the moment, because it's all so fresh.
Mm. Tell me about the pageant coming up. We haven't talked much about it.
No,
So when is it?
oh my
You said
goodness.
in the Philippines. When is it? What's going to happen?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I am so excited. It is the Miss Asia Pacific International 2025 pageant. It is being held in Manila, Philippines, but we'll also be traveling to Cebu, which is so exciting because I'm a beach girl, so I love that we're going to a beachy island kind of place in the Philippines. And the Miss Asia Pacific International pageant is their kind of fundamental is that it's based around beauty and diversity. And what that means isn't just kind of personal experience thing, but it's also just who you are as a human being, what you uniquely bring to the table. And that's something that I really value because, in pageantry, a lot of it is quite cookie cutter, and a lot of us are expected to kind of fit into one mold. But the Miss Asia Pacific International crown is about showcasing who you are and your individuality in that sense. So that's why with my campaign to the crown, I have been marketing myself as an artist while also marketing myself as a real community builder, because those are things that make me really unique and stand
Yeah.
out. It's what makes New Zealand, Team New Zealand, Team New Zealand, But yeah, it's a very exciting pageant. There's going to be lots of things that I haven't experienced before, like press conferences and things that I'm like, oh my goodness. But I'm also just so thrilled because, as we mentioned way at the beginning, New Zealand has won the Miss Asia Pacific International title before, back in 1986 with Helen Crawford. But New Zealand hasn't managed to bring home a Miss title since. So that's why we are hoping over here in New Zealand that I can hopefully bring home that crown, because it is such an encouragement to young women in New Zealand that we can be internationally recognized. And I think the whole beauty and diversity thing is such a beautiful sentiment. It's such a wonderful sentiment, and that's something that I would be very proud to have across my chest in that Miss Asia Pacific International sash and crown. So yeah, it's a very unique pageant in that sense, and obviously Philippines being such a powerhouse, such an invigorating place for pageantry. It's just so exciting to have this honor, to have this privilege to be able to go over there and showcase New Zealand and take in the Philippines, because yeah, I'm so excited and so blessed to be able to have that, because I'm just a small town girl. And it's not often that we come across these incredible international opportunities down here. So yeah, feeling really amazing.
Break into that Journey song, just a small
Yeah,
town
I know, I
girl
nearly
living in a
did.
lonely world. I'm like,
We've been talking about
really?
music too much.
I got that song in my head. When is the pageant happening and how long is it
Oh
going
yes,
for?
it's it is starting on the arrival day is the 22nd of September, so it'll be a 13-hour flight from New Zealand, so not too bad.
Oh,
And then coronation night is on October 8th, which is apparently a lucky day in some cultures, which is really great. 8 of the 8. And then we fly home on the 10th. However, if you are lucky enough to make the top 5 or win the pageant, then you stay on for an extra 2 weeks and you do a sort of press tour and a tourism kind of campaign around the Philippines. So definitely something I'm very much looking forward to. My parents were tour guides back in the day before they had children, so the whole tourism aspect is really exciting for me, because I love to travel, I love to learn about new cultures, and I love to showcase New Zealand's culture and speak a bit of te reo and sing a few waiata along the way. So yeah, it's definitely an experience I'm so gratefully looking forward to, because it's going to be so unique. And I've had countless people say to me, oh, so what's going to happen, what happens, why do you want to go away, why it's going to be a long time that you're going to be away, and I've just kind of gone, the art business, the art stuff I can put on hold, but this might be a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I'm really excited to be able to, yeah, experience all of those unique things, because how incredible that little old New Zealand is being able to be recognized internationally like this. It brings warmth to my heart, and I'm just, yeah, very excited for September 22nd to roll around and jump on a plane. Woo!
I wonder how many times you're going to have to explain what New Zealand is, because having interviewed a few Kiwi title holders before, they
Yeah.
did say they kind of needed to immediately explain what New Zealand was, because they always get like, is that like Australia? It's like, no.
Yeah, no. New Zealand is the cold part of Australia that's not at all attached to Australia. We're not a state of Australia. Like, I love Australia. I love Australia. I'm not, we are not connected. It's just, yeah. I mean, it's a very common thing, because obviously we're neighbours and we're very close to each other. We're best friends. New Zealand and Aussie have had a really long-standing relationship for such a long time that people do just associate us with each other. But I say New Zealand is entirely different to Australia. I mean, you guys are a beautiful desert with the most incredible beaches and the scariest little critters, but Love you.
Little.
And then, over here, we're just forest and, lots of birds that love to squawk and chatter. And we've got a few little bugs, but yeah, it's definitely far different to Aussie. And it's going to be something that I feel like I'm going to be repeating myself with when I do go over to the Philippines. But I'll be grateful to do so because, New Zealand is such a wonderful place to be able to promote. So, and sometimes if I just say, do you know the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
That was
That's
here, And that kind
Frodo.
of helps too.
I feel like you should just have a t-shirt saying, "No, I'm not Australian."
That's such a good idea. I could probably make one. I love making.
There you
I'm
go.
actually sewing my graduation dress for the graduation ceremony at the end of this year, and I'm actually making an outfit right now, which is my arrival day outfit or something. I'm not sure yet. I haven't
Yeah.
thought that far ahead, but
No.
yeah, I'm gonna be hand paint. I've sewn the dress from scratch, and I'm gonna be hand painting my beautiful flowers that I love to paint on there. Um, so yeah, I could totally make a shirt that says "I'm not Australian, please. We are separate." I don't know. We'll figure out a tagline, but it's definitely something we could look into. Quite fun, quite humorous. Our
I mean,
flags don't even have the same amount of stars.
no, yours are red, aren't they? Are they red
Yeah,
or
ours are
white?
red and white. And
Yeah,
we've only
no,
got 5 points to our stars, and you've got 5 points and then like an extra little two, don't you, that have like 7 points?
I don't quite remember. I just remember we have a different number of stars.
Yeah,
And
you
so
do.
the flags are
That's the
similar.
artist in me. See, I'm like, your stars have different number of points.
No, I'm a typical guy. I don't notice these things. I will say, embarrassingly, and then we'll move to the final 10. But embarrassingly, the one time I did go over to New Zealand for a holiday, I forgot that I needed a passport to go over there because I forgot that New Zealand isn't Australia. And then with about 2 weeks to go, I'm like, hang on, New Zealand isn't Australia, is it? I might need my passport, and I had to put a rush on the passport. It cost me an arm and a leg. But even me, it was like, New Zealand to me, like someone had described New Zealand and Australia as like, you can describe it as close, but it's also frenemies. Like they're more like
Yes.
siblings. You know, like
Yes.
siblings, they love each other, but sometimes they love to argue, and they get
Yes.
into arguments about absolutely nothing. I describe,
Absolutely.
that's how I describe Australia and New Zealand. It's more like siblings, and sometimes they're just arguing for no reason at all.
Yeah, for sure. No, the siblings thing is so accurate. Absolutely. And I think like that friendly rivalry is also really, really interesting. And I do feel like I have a sort of camaraderie with the Aussie Queens, in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is just it is really fun. It is really I'm excited to see who my roommate will be. Maybe it'll be Miss Asia Pacific International Australia.
Hmm.
Might have to have a wee chat. But like, yeah, it's we love it. I mean, yeah, we are two separate countries and we do have two separate passports, which makes which does make things a little confusing sometimes, but that's okay.
It just completely slipped my mind. Anyway, before we move to the final 10, is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, first my mum and my dad, because they are so lovely and fabulous and they have allowed me to go on this journey with such success. My little sister who my little sister Bianca, who thinks this world is absolutely bonkers and absolutely not for her. She's the complete opposite of me, but she's been supportive nonetheless and has helped me through many, many times of going, am I doing the right thing? She's been the one to be the voice of reason. And shout out to my dog, who's right here.
Hello.
And
Got a surprise look on his face.
I know, and shout out to my nana, and shout out to my family over in Australia who will probably watch this and think, well, she's sounding more Kiwi today. But yeah, over in Cairns, they're just lovely lovelies, and yeah, miss them all very much. So I think that's everyone. Should probably also thank Maria and Dwayne, who are the national directors of of Miss Asia Pacific International New Zealand, and also thank lovely Tito Russell. So yeah, I think that's everyone.
You need to back up to your sister's name.
Oh, Bianca. Her name's
No,
Bianca.
didn't you call her Pooh?
What?
Oh, no, I think you might have. I thought for a second you gave her a nickname of Pooh, and I was like, I don't understand. I think you must have
Oh
used
my God, she'd
a
murder
Maori
me.
term. You must have used a Maori term or something to describe her. I don't know. I'll have to go back and watch it. I got very
Oh
confused.
yeah, I don't think so. But
Back.
that's okay. No, I know I would speak for my sister. She's my little baby sister. I mean, she's 18. She's a grown woman, but I think of her as my little baby sister. She's the best. We were very 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 close when we were growing up together. We did everything together. Joined at the hip, wore the same clothes. Like mum would always make us match and all these different things. So yeah, it was just we've got a very loving relationship. I'm very grateful for her.
Glad to hear it. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go through these final 10. Number one, what is your favorite word?
Ooh. I'm gonna say aquamarine. Oh wait, I'm gonna change my answer because aquamarine is gonna lend itself to my other answer, which is Moana. And people are gonna think, wow, that's the Disney movie that everyone loves. But actually over here in New Zealand, Moana means ocean. And I have grown up next to the ocean, being a beach town, Mount Maunganui, being next to Tauranga Moana, which is what we call the harbour of Tauranga. And Moana to me seems like the ocean is just such a place of meditation for me. It's been my escape a lot of the time when I've been going through really tough times. I recently lost my papa, and I would spend a lot of time at the beach trying to process those feelings. And yeah, I think that my connection to the ocean is so deep that I would say that my favorite word is the one that encapsulates the place that I feel the most comfort, which is at the beach. Sometimes I'll bring my paints along and do a little sketch, but a lot of the time it's just the place where I can really feel at ease. And yeah, so Moana would be my favorite word, closely followed by aquamarine because that's my favorite color.
I think there's no other place like the ocean. I think just being next to it, you hear the sound of the waves and you can smell the sea salt in the air. I think
Yes,
it's by far the best place in the world. You just
absolutely.
have time to think. All right, so that's your favorite word. Number two, what is your least favorite word?
Ooh. Oh my goodness. Word. I wouldn't know. I think I'd have to say something like, hmm. I'm trying to think of a Kiwi term here. maybe actually, maybe the term bogan. Because bogan sounds so derogatory when actually bogan is something to be proud of sometimes. And, some bogans are pretty crazy and are a little bit wild. But the thing is with bogan is that it just sounds like really it's like an ugly word to me when actually being a bogan doesn't automatically mean that you're slouchy and laid back and blah 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 and whatever wild and obnoxious. It can be quite a lovely trait to be a little bit bogan. I would say I'd probably be a little bit bogan, but that's part of the Kiwi way. But yeah, that's a really random thing. I don't know if you've had that one before, but I wouldn't know what other people would say.
Oh, that's probably the first time I've had that as an answer to that question. But I don't think there's anything wrong with being a little bogan. I know a lot of the Americans, their equivalent is redneck, and
Yes.
they'll describe themselves as being a bit redneck. I always thought it was a derogatory term, so I never used it, but they use it to describe themselves. So I think it's very similar to that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
Number three in life, what gets you excited or what turns you on?
Ooh. Ooh. To be fair, it sounds like I'm going back on myself and repeating myself like a broken record, but being creative. Because at the end of the day, I can rely on the fact that some days I'm going to have creative block, but I'm still being creative in the way that I might choose to go about my day, like going to the gym and picking what workouts I want to do or what music I want to listen to that day. That's still a creative decision for me, but also just having that freedom to be able to create something new every day is just really exciting for me. It gets me out of bed in the morning and makes me go, yeah, I'm excited to do whatever I'm going to do today. So that's why I studied art, because I was thinking, what's going to get me out of bed at 9 o'clock? Oh, 7 o'clock in the morning to go to my 8 a.m. lectures. What's going to make me go, yes, I want to go learn about this? And it was art, you know. You would not catch me getting out of bed early for a science. No, no way. But art, absolutely. I'm sat. I'm there.
You were going to say that you were getting up at 9 o'clock for your 8 a.m. lecture, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
that sounds like an art student
I
in a
can't say
nutshell.
that didn't happen. It did happen a couple of times. The
Like, that
alarm
just
was
sounds like
gone.
artist life in general. Waking up at 9 for an 8 a.m. lecture. It's like, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
hard life.
To be fair, art classes, my classes at uni, because it was such a unique degree, we would have classes for 3 hours straight. And that would be those critique sessions that we'd have where we'd walk around and talk about everything. So, yeah.
Right.
It was, even if I was an hour late, I'd still have 2 hours left of class, but that didn't happen too often.
Fair enough. Well, that's what turns you on, creativity. What about what turns you off?
You know what? A Debbie Downer, a negative attitude. I am nicknamed Happy Hannah. I'm just always really
I
bubbly.
can't imagine
and
why.
excited. No, I know. I have no idea where I get it from, honestly. But yeah, I guess when people just can't see or can't be optimistic and they're just constantly pessimistic, that is something that really kind of draws me away from those kinds of people, because I just look around and say, you know what? There's so much to be grateful for around us, and there's so many connections that are so exciting to have made, and then there's so many things that you can do with your time, and being negative for that time just seems like such a waste, you know. And I think we're allowed to go through times where we're going to feel sad, or we're going to feel empty, or you know, we've run out of gas in the tank and we're feeling exhausted. I think that's all fine. But if you're constantly just feeling so down on yourself or down on a situation, if you're constantly being super negative, then to me it just the pessimistic side just really it's just really not something that I gel with. So that's why I'm always encouraging people to be happy and bright, and if they can't be happy and bright, then at least see the good that is in the world, or have faith that there will be goodness that is coming your way in time. Yeah.
What sound or noise do you love?
Heavy metal rock music. I'm a huge heavy metal head. I love rock music. My dad raised me on rock music, as many people have. I have tickets to the Metallica concert at the end of the year in Auckland that I'm very excited to be attending. And I did go to Iron Maiden's farewell tour a couple of years ago with my dad. And I mean, there's just something about the heavy metal community in New Zealand. You know, we're all just so stoked when big bands like Metallica decide that they're going to come over to Little Old New Zealand. We're like, oh my goodness, this is insane. This is so cool. And everyone's just so excited to be there and so excited to rock on and dance. And yeah, I mean, some crowds can be a little bit toxic, but in New Zealand, we're pretty lucky. Everyone's very conscientious here. And yeah, I love heavy metal music. It takes me back to, you know, dancing with my family in the lounge and listening to Aussie classic rock is definitely a staple. Men at Work, and you know, those Midnight Oil, I think it is
Yeah.
pretty happens a lot in this household. But yeah, just it takes me back to a really wonderful time with my family, and also to those insane concerts that I was lucky enough to attend. And yeah, definitely my music of choice when I jump in the car for those long trips up to Auckland when I've got to do those modelling shoots or the pageant stuff. So yeah.
I do love it when I see that those old school rockers are still around. Like, I think I was listening to a song on YouTube, and I think it was was it Cold Chisel or Jimmy Barnes?
Oh,
And then
yes.
underneath it's got tickets to his event, and I'm just like, oh my God, he's still performing. I don't know how old he is, but he's still
Yeah.
performing. And to me, I get so much more excited about that than the latest American Idol winner, whatever. It's like,
Yeah, me
I don't
too.
care about that. But, you know, it's Jimmy Barnes or, you know, whoever it is like that. I want to go and see that. They're still around, some of them. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, I do that too, honestly, because we had yeah, when the Back to Beginning, have you seen about the Back to Beginning concert that happened? It was like a tribute to Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne, and it happened
Wow.
just before
Right.
he passed away recently.
Oh,
And
yeah.
all these bands came together from all sorts. There were new bands, but there were also a lot of staples from the 80s that were around at the same time.
Nice.
And it was just, oh, it was a tour for the ages. I totally wish I could have been there, but it's just that kind of thing where it's bringing people together is what's so special about music, and especially with the heavy metal, having the greats stick around.
Yeah.
And it's just, definitely something I love. And I think I'll carry on the family tradition, maybe introduce my future kids to Metallica and say, back in my day.
Glad to hear it. Well, what sound or noise do you hate?
Maybe the sound in Doom when you die, because Doom is a retro video game, and
I know what Doom is, but what the scream he makes?
Yeah, it freaks me out. It freaks me out. I used to play Doom with my dad all the time. Okay, let me rephrase that. I used to watch my dad play Doom on the PlayStation 1 while hiding behind a cushion, terrified.
Isn't scary?
Yeah, it was scary. And then, as I got older, now I play it with him. And it's so frustrating when you hear that scream, because it just means there's no saving in Doom. There's no save. You go right back to the beginning, and you've just got to live with that. You can't fast forward back to the start of the level. You lose all your guns, you lose everything. And it's my favorite video game because, well, one of my favorite video games, because it means I'm revisiting a childhood memory, but also being able to spend really quality time with my dad and my family. So yeah, but as I say, least favorite sound because it's terrifying.
That is definitely an original answer. I will say the Doom soundtrack is actually pretty heavy metal.
Brilliant.
It's got a great soundtrack, and
Brilliant.
I used to play that game with my brother, and there was a particular sound when the cyber demon was firing rockets at you, and when you got hit by a rocket and you just ended up as red mist, that screaming sound he makes right as you turn into ketchup, I remember that sound. It was such a shock sound when you get smacked. And I know exactly the sound you mean, which is really weird.
Yes.
But the soundtrack to Doom, it's still I still remember it now. It was
it's incredible. I unironically listen to it a lot.
Yeah.
I just love it because it was the first of its kind. And that's what a lot of people don't know, is that a lot of those first person shooter FPS games, they originated from Doom. And that music soundtrack, it was so unique to that game, and the sound design of the monsters and the creepy crawlies that you'd have to take down, it was really interesting. And and even with the new games that are coming out every now and again, Doom, I think it's Doom the Dark Ages has just been released or something like that.
It's gone on sale on Steam, by the way. I just got an email about it. So yeah, it's gone on $30 discount, just so you know.
Oh. See, I wish I had the only PlayStations that we have are PlayStation 1 that still works, PlayStation 2 still works, and a PlayStation 4. So I've had the chance to play a couple of the more recent Doom games from 2016, but nothing compares to the original in my opinion. That soundtrack, those sounds, that really unique atmosphere. It's so pixelated, but it feels so immersive.
At the time, it was. At the time, you said you were hiding. At the time, people have to realize it genuinely was terrifying because it was the first time it felt like it was you in the game, not watching someone else. Of course, by today's standards, it's different. But just interestingly, a side note, the new games, at least the first remake, the guy who did the soundtrack, I think he's either an Aussie or a Kiwi. And he's a fascinating, his name is Mick Gordon. He's a fascinating case because he did a soundtrack for a fighting game, and he's so into his art that for one of the songs, one of the fighting characters was an animated skeleton. And to make the song, he got a Tibetan flute that's made literally from the leg bone of a dead person, like a femur. It's a really interesting case. There's so much he puts into the music. I just think because we're talking about creativity so much, he's a really interesting case. It's not just, I did music on the keyboard. He got a whole Gregorian choir together of heavy metal rockers to do
Wow.
chants for the Doom 2016 soundtrack, and everyone loved that soundtrack. He's a really
Yes.
interesting case, and I think he's either an Aussie or Kiwi. I think he might be
I
Kiwi
feel
actually.
Yeah, I feel like I've definitely heard of him and heard about how he's a
Yeah.
yeah, he's from around here somewhere. But
Well, you
yeah, no,
have to
I
be
love
to
New
make that
Orleans
sort of
music.
music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No.
he also took some of the classics, the theme song and all sorts, and really transformed them
Exactly.
into a more modern space. And that was such a unique move and a creative move. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely have a deep appreciation for that kind of artwork in a sense because it's art.
It is. It is. And he was really respectful. I can't believe I'm talking about this on a pageant interview, but he was really respectful to the original and he iterated on it. So, like, the original fans didn't feel disrespected, and yet he
No.
brought his own unique twist to it. But again, he went so far. Like, it was getting. I saw the choir, and I use the term choir loosely because they're all like wearing leather jackets and metal chains, and they're all
Oh,
getting
that's
together
awesome.
and they're all screaming, and it's like, this is so cool because it's demonic, and it's like, oh my god. So yeah, I've never
Yeah.
discussed this in a pageant interview before, but
Well, there you
here we go.
go. You're discussing vintage video games and
I
and
now have
rock
that
music.
scream. I have that scream of the Doom Marine getting hit by a
Yeah,
rocket.
no, it's in my head now too. You're terrifying
Like,
me.
oh god. Okay. Next question: if you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
Waterbending because I am a Pisces and so I've always loved being around the water. I also love to wakeboard and do lots of water sports. I love being on the ski biscuits and things like that. And I just think it would be so fun to make the wake do incredible stuff while you're riding it on a wakeboard. Like imagine you could make a ramp out of the water as you like come up and do a jump. I mean, not to say that I can do a jump on a wakeboard because I've tried that and failed many times. But that's about building resilience, right? So yeah, no, I would say waterbending for sure, especially because I'd love to just walk straight off the beach. I mean, the beach is 5 minutes from my house. I'd love to just walk through the ocean and see like what the bottom of the ocean looks like from the beach, like right there. There was actually the biggest maritime disaster in New Zealand that was purely from oil and sea life loss actually happened literally just off the coast of where I live
Okay.
on Astrolabe Reef. And it was the Rena disaster. I think it happened in 2011, and it killed so many of our native species of native sea life, which was really sad. And containers were washing up on the beach like all the time, so it was really huge. But I think it'd be so interesting because I've always had a deep fascination, pun the pun, for underwater things and shipwrecks and things like that. So I'd love to go and see what that looks like now. Over 10 years, 12 years later, and see what the arena looks like underneath the water and be able to bend the ocean in that way. Yeah.
That just sounds so frightening to me because I'm not afraid of many things, but one thing I am afraid of is like tsunamis and water
Oh,
spouts and
I'm
giant
terrified
things
of
like that.
tsunamis.
And
Absolutely
so
terrified.
if you were separating the water and you were on the bottom of the ocean, you'd have huge walls of water next to you. And I just go like, what happens if your power disappears for a sec? Now you have a huge wave crash. Like I can't do
Look, I
that.
hadn't thought that far ahead, okay?
You're walking in the middle of the ocean and you've parted it, and the only thing that's keeping it that way is you. I'm like, I'm not walking there. You can do you. You do you. I'm
I
not
mean,
walking
yeah.
there. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm terrified by that. Thank you.
No, me too, but that's okay. I didn't think about it like that, and now I'm scared of it. But I'm not changing my answer because I'm confident.
Okay. All right. Or stubborn. One or the other. Number 8. What job other than your own would you most like to attempt?
Attempt. Being a skydive instructor, like a skydive person, like a tandem skydiver, going up, taking people who are absolutely terrified for their lives, going, just you wait, you're going to have the best time, and then jumping out of that plane with them. And, it's just, what a beautiful job. You're jumping out of the plane and you're just seeing this insane view all the time. Because when I was doing my skydive for cancer recently, that was something that I talked to the skydive master about. I said, so what's it like working as a skydive master? Because that must be pretty incredible. And obviously working in Tauranga, what a beautiful view you've got. You've got the mount, you've got you've got, oh my goodness, I've just forgotten, Matakana Island, and you've got the whole coastline. You can see all the way to the Coromandel Peninsula on a really clear day, which, if you didn't know, is that like point that sticks out on the east coast of the New Zealand. And yeah, it's, I mean, I would just love to have that job where you can jump out of a plane every day, encourage people, be like, yes, no, don't worry, it's going to be a wonderful time, you're going to absolutely love it. And then yeah, falling out of the sky and being like, this is my job. I would just love that. That would be a job that I would want.
I had I had a former Miss Universe Great Britain over here, and we went on a skydive, and I think tandem skydive, and I think you're missing the point of being an instructor, because the instructor that she had was telling her the whole time, "Oh no, I'm only in training. I've never done this before," and he spent the whole time terrifying her. So it's not about being supportive; it's about having a good practical joke at someone else's expense, I think.
That's brilliant. That's so cheeky. I think it's also from like my parents being adrenaline junkies back in the day. Like, it is something that I've just always been drawn to in that sense. So the fear, like, I have a little bit of fear, but for the most part, it's just excitement to be able to go out and do something incredible with my day. So yeah, just a typical Sunday. Just jump out of a plane, you know.
Only humans would jump out of a perfectly good plane. It's another thing that only we would do. But anyway, what job would you definitely not like to attempt?
Oh, being a scientist. So quick. I can't do science at all. Like, I've tried, but I mean, I love biology and I love watching Walking with Dinosaurs and stuff like that. Like, I love that, but I just couldn't see myself doing like just being a scientist. I don't think my brain could handle the amount of dedication and the amount of brain power that you need for that. I have one of my friends, she's an absolutely talented science major at university, and I look at the work that she does and I just think, how incredible. This also looks like a foreign language to me entirely. So yeah, deep respect for them, and obviously the backbone of a lot of our, practices in society, but definitely not a job that I would want to undertake.
Fair enough. Okay, final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Oh, that I had been, that I was helpful and empathetic to everyone that needed it, and that at some point I had brought joy to someone who really needed it that day, or really needed my presence to be around them, because my number one mission in life is to be a beacon of light and happiness for people who can't seem to find it on their own. And I think that mission of me being able to spread joy, whether that's through my art or just through being a bubbly and loud personality, is really important to me. And just to know that I had succeeded in that mission by making others feel happy and seen and understood and empathized with is definitely something that I would want to take with me. And I'd also hope that they would say that I've got all of the lovely people who I've unfortunately lost along the way waiting for me with open arms and ready for big cuddles.
Well, we made it. That's about all we have time for. Thank you so much for coming on, for your time, and best of luck in the pageant.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I've had such a wonderful time talking to you, especially about the retro video games.
That was deeply unexpected, but I will keep you on the line for just a sec whilst I hang out with the audience. But thanks to everyone for watching, and we will speak to you next time. Bye for now.